Hi there.
Hi there.
What is up?
A lot of things.
A lot of things
a
are
lot
up.
of things are up.
The ceiling, the sky,
the Stugats
with the red tie.
To quote the Jersey Boys movie.
Vincent Piazza.
Yes.
Love
him. Yeah. Well, welcome everybody back to Silhouettes JV podcast. I am Gia.
And I'm David. Welcome.
Yes, and we have a very, very special episode for you today. Now, first thing you need to know is that we're recording this on May 17th, 2022. And for all the Jersey Boys super fans out there, you know that Jersey Boys is closing in New York at New World Stages this coming Sunday on May 22nd. But we have a very special episode with the man who gives us the music that you've been longing to hear.
The
maestro.
Every time. Yes. The man behind the podium. Yep. Keys 3.
Keys 3.
If you know, you know.
Ben Hartman. Now, Ben Hartman has been involved in Jersey Boys since 2007.
Playing keys and conducting in multiple companies. He'll kind of give us the breakdown when we bring him on. He is a rock star.
He is a rock star, and he is talking to us on his one night off in the final week of Jersey Boys at New World Stages, and we're so grateful that he wants to talk to us today. So Ben, please come on out.
Please welcome Ben Hartman. Hey.
Hey guys.
There he is.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so glad to be doing this with you guys, and I'm glad we found the time. I know we've been trying a couple of week here, a week there, and we finally made it happen. So I'm really thrilled about that.
Yes, we did. Well, early salud.
Salud.
Let's do it.
Okay. Very, very auspicious week. Very auspicious week. How are you feeling, man?
It is. Oh, you feel kind of everything. It's really that mix of feeling sad that you're not going to get to be doing this for longer, and that the people that are such an integral part of the company, you won't have the experience of doing the show, which we spent a long time in 2020 and 2021 waiting to do. But we had these 6.5 or so months, maybe a little bit more with auditions and rehearsals. And you just have to be thankful for that time. And a lot of us have gotten to do this show for quite a while. And I just couldn't be more proud of the group we have at New World, and proud to be part of the fact that we're all going to be there together on Sunday to do it one more time.
And it's been so amazing that, listen, obviously COVID sucks, but it's brought back so many people who, and Katie O'Toole said something on social media. She was like, she never got to say goodbye to the show on Broadway because she had her,
that's right,
child, and she had to leave. So, and she's gone back to New World multiple times, to play Lorraine Francine. But she said that she got her closure. Mm-hmm. She got to close on her own terms, and Kylie Ray was able to come back. John Gardner has been able to come back. Kit Treese, Candy Boyd, Natalie Gallo, all of these amazing people that Jonathan Stevens. No, Chris Stevens. Sorry, not Jonathan.
Chris Stevens, right? Stevens. Yeah.
Oh God, I mixed up Jonathan Cable and Chris Stevens. Sorry, Chris, love you. And he's also doing Waitress right now. But then he left Waitress for like a hot second to go do Jersey Boys on tour.
That's right.
Fucking rock star. I mean, seriously. So like, really, and he, he hasn't been with the show since before the pandemic too. So he was on the tour before the pandemic. So really, it brought a lot of people back who haven't been with the show for such a long time, and they kind of had to get another go at it. And I think that was beautiful. Really, really beautiful.
Yeah, I think everyone needed it. And Jersey Boys, of course, with family is everything, has a way of giving that gift back.
Everyone remembers it how they need to, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think if there was a silver lining, that was it. That was it, to have those people get another shot, or to, like you said, with Katie, who's with us right now, to have closure and, close out the company together. Again, in the midst of a bad and sort of unimaginable situation of the pandemic, it's been great to see those people again, get to watch and hear their performances.
Of course, yeah, yes. And we left Porter Simmons out of that list.
Oh my God,
yes.
Porter.
Oh, of course, yes.
Porter Simmons,
yes.
And Ben Bogan also was able to come back for a little bit, and
it was truly almost like a second company when you take the aggregate really, of those people.
Everyone came back seriously, and I mean, Porter really stepped in this last.
Oh gosh, yeah. He's been fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of, being involved for so long. Ben, you have been
Yeah.
involved in Jersey Boys since 2007. Can you please talk about, how you got your start and how it's been?
Sure, yeah.
Well done.
So I was in 2007, I was in Chicago. I was doing some graduate work at the University of Chicago, and I was playing in piano bars and with singers and like open mic nights. And the sort of longer-ish story of getting involved with Jersey Boys was that I began working at a sort of cocktail bar, restaurant with a fantastic human being and a wonderful singer named Ginger Tam. And she would always do the set after the set that I did. I would do sort of the early set, and she would kind of come on with her pianist and do a later set. And we just befriended one another. And she recommended me to a gentleman, also just a wonderful human named Chuck Larkin, who is a conductor, pianist, arranger in Chicago as well. And he was the associate conductor of the Chicago company of Jersey Boys, which began in Chicago. It began in October of 2007. They had been in San Francisco for something like 6 months prior to that. Mm-hmm. And I got my start by being a sub for Chuck. So when Chuck would conduct the show, he would move up, and the Jonathan Smith or Smitty would be out noting the show.
He's on Ain't Too Proud.
Yes. Yeah, that's where I first met Smitty. And so I would come in for that show, and then if somebody took a personal day, and then it just kind of grew from there. And I started playing some rehearsals and working with that company over the 2 years and maybe 4 months or so that it was there. So that was kind of my first, time with Jersey Boys and with the Jersey Boys company, was kind of just being a sub who came in a couple times a week and played a rehearsal here and, played a dance rehearsal there and, whatnot. And it was such a real highlight of those years. I think that working with some incredible musicians in Chicago and working on a show that was just unlike anything I had ever seen up to that point. I was so excited, and I always look forward to like the nights. If it was like, okay, it's Thursday night this week, I get to play Jersey Boys. And so it was kind of like always the thing to look forward to. And I am someone who also always had like one foot in music theater and doing all of the things like conducting and arranging and, playing in local theater companies through junior high school and high school. I played in my first show pit when I was in 8th grade. I actually played the trumpet of all things, even though I don't play trumpet anymore. But it was a production of Some Like It Hot. So there's always been like a theater path for me. And when the Chicago company was coming to a close, it just so happened that the associate conductor chair was opening up on the tour. And I talked to Smitty and, just got some sort of advice about like, how would I, express interest in this? And long story short, I ended up getting that position, and I flew out to the tour, or I flew out to New York in February of 2010. And that's when I had met Ron very, very briefly before, just backstage at one of the Chicago performances, just sort of an informal hello. And then I really got to come to New York during that time in February and work with him for a handful of days and kind of really, really get into the score and the details of the conducting book and all that it entails. It was a really, really great set of days. And then I went out to the tour, and I was the associate for a couple of years. And then, was fortunately had the opportunity to be promoted to the conductor, to the music director. And then the first national tour was closing, maybe only like 7 or 8 months after I got that promotion. And I got a phone call from Ron, and he asked if it just so happened that Joanne Doherty, also a great conductor, music director, pianist, human, who was from the Chicago company. She had been the Keys One in Chicago and was the music director on the second national tour. She was leaving that post. And so I kind of slid in. And then I conducted the second national tour for, I think 2 years and change. So it's about like 5.5 years on the road. Mm-hmm. And then I came to New York and was subbing in a bunch of shows that weren't Jersey Boys for a little while. And then got a call from Ron in the summer of 2017 about, the production of New World Stages. And the one thing I had never done, first of all, was to have a show in New York City, which is just an incredible opportunity. And then to really like build the Jersey Boys company from the ground up. I had always gotten, very fortunate, but had always taken over when a company was up and running. And I thought that sounded like a fantastic, next step to take. And so fortunately things worked out, and I started at New World when we began in, I think rehearsal started in October of 2017.
Only a month?
I think it was like 6 weeks, and it was so many alumni, right? Like we had the cast, I think everyone in the cast at the start of New World Stages, if I'm remembering right, everyone in the cast was an alumni of the show. But we had to build this, not build, I mean, it was there already, but we had to put up this version of the show where with the sort of reduced forces of the cast a little bit, and, have the guys who are used to being, let's say, Norm on Broadway, on the tour, now their tracking is quite a bit different, in the New World version, and their singing is a little bit different in the New World version. So it was a shorter rehearsal process because everyone was already in the world and could, quickly kind of make the adjustments they needed, I think.
So with New World, what was the most, like, I guess, what was the biggest, like the best part of it? What was the challenge of being in that space?
Sure. Yeah, I think the best part is, and I know you guys have come and seen us, so many times. I think the best part of it is when you sit in the audience at New World, no matter where you are. I've sat and watched the show to take notes up in the balcony. I've sat in the back of the orchestra. I've sat not too far into the front, but, in sort of center, 8 rows back or something. You are so in touch with the story and the performances in that space. And I think that I've watched it also like on tour, like you said, in huge houses like the Fox in St. Louis, where it's, this 4,300 seat theater. Wow. So I think the best thing about New World is that it's so present, and what you see and what you get from the performances, it's just at a more, visceral level. And I think that that's also true for what you hear, because you're close to the performances, you're closer to the, the sound system. I think it sounded, just as great in the big houses, but I think there's just some intimacy about seeing it almost like a play, at New World that really feels true to, the project. What
were some of the changes that you had to make to fit the levels? I know you guys had to adjust to using an electrical drum kit.
Right. Yeah, we did some things that are pretty unique. Yeah, I mean, as far as the changes, there was a decision to not use an acoustic drum kit, I think for reasons of just the clarity of the mix and the smallness of the space. I wasn't part of those discussions, but I think they would have been had at, the top level of creatives and someone like, perhaps Bob, I don't know. But to make sure that, we're doing the best we can to use that space wisely. And I think it just was thought that a live drummer would create sound, issues that we might not have wanted. As you said, I think, David, you alluded to the guitar. So they collapsed the guitar chairs from 2 guitar chairs to 1. And also it's on one particular instrument. It's on this guitar called the Variax. And that guitar is what's called sort of a modeling guitar. And it can, with the help of a sort of special, foot pedal setup, it can model almost any kind of a guitar, from an acoustic to the baritone to the sitar that we have.
Like main stage for
it's
guitar.
Sort of, it's almost like main stage for guitar. And Joe Payne, who played with us up to the pandemic, and Steve Gibb, who was with us before that and then joined full time after the pandemic, are just masters of that instrument. I mean, it's a tough beast to kind of make sound just like an actual guitar in all of those cases, or a sitar as it were. But they are so good with it.
And they know the show so intimately too.
Sure. Yeah.
How closely do you work with the stage management crew with sound, to make, do you ever go up to the sound booth and make adjustments yourself, or is there a certain thing that everyone has to stick to one job.
Well, there's a lot of overlap there, right? You know, I don't go to the soundboard and make adjustments myself because I wouldn't know how. But you work with the A1, you know, the head of audio, you know, and just as the way you work with actors, you know, you want to hear something or musicians, you want to hear more of this or less of this. And if you can achieve that note by talking to a musician, you know, less hi-hat, you know, during the underscore section here, well, then let's take care of it at the source. You know, and if there's something that feels a little bit more complicated, you know, you can talk with the A1 and, you know, they might have a solution for you that gets you what you would like to hear, or what, you know, Ron and Des and Gaudio would want to hear. So there's a lot you work with them. Or let's say, you know, you have something that doesn't happen on tour a lot, but that happens on any show in New York, is that you have sub musicians coming in, just like I was in Chicago, right?
Yeah.
And so they're playing the guitar, they're playing my chair if I'm, you know, taking a day off. And, you know, you work with the sound department to say, okay, this, you know, let's say this particular conductor, you know, if they can dig into the piano solos, like Oh What a Night and Cry for Me, if they can just dig in a little bit more, that's going to help set them at a level of volume that's more used to what I'm hearing when, you know, I conduct the show. Then we'll, you know, the sound will come to me and say, hey, I was out in the house, I heard that conductor, they're fantastic, but can you give them these, you know, 3 or 4 notes that would help kind of equalize the two of your performances.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So do all the guitar players have their own variacs, or is that something that you provide?
No, I think one of them does, but we have, you know, the show operates, we have sort of the main one and a spare. And, you know, the people who come in to sub the guitar chair, you know, that's such a difficult book that, you know, coming in and getting used to that setup and used to the foot pedaling and how you have to kind of navigate that book is something that all those subs and players come in and spend quite a bit of time to really get the feel for it, because it's not something that they probably have at home.
Right. And how often, I know rehearsals don't happen so often, especially when it comes to like I mean, I know you guys do brush up rehearsals, you know, every so
Sure.
often. I think someone told us what the breakdown was. There's like a certain amount of time that spans like where, okay, now you have to have a brush up rehearsal. Like it's like,
yeah, I think I think it is, I believe, an equity rule that for like an understudy rehearsal. So now we're talking about just the actors,
right.
That if you're understudying, you know, you have to be given a certain amount of rehearsal on each role that you have. And so typically those would be had every 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how many new people you might have in the company. You know, during the height of Omicron, where we were receiving emergency replacements on what seemed like an hourly basis, we were rehearsing so much that all of those things almost kind of happened as a matter of course. Although from the time we opened in November until December, we kind of had a month of just working with the cast. You're rehearsing a lot because you're putting people back into the roles that they'll need to cover.
So when it comes to Broadway musicians, Broadway pits, you know, musicians that are working at this high level of commercial theater, how does the band, I guess, operate from day to day, rehearsals? I mean, I can't, because everyone's really at the top of their game, I can't imagine that like there are rehearsals, because it has to do with, you know, getting things on the books, being official, you know, with the music contractors and everything. So if we can just deep, you know, just kind of dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So quickly, I think one of the things is that the band rehearses at the beginning of the run. There's usually a couple of rehearsals or a few nights of rehearsals that the people who are sitting in those chairs most of the nights, they get together and you know, put everything together. And then as far as like night to night, like you were saying, there are substitutes who come in and they all have to get approved and you know, by me or, you know, whoever the conductor is. And they are musicians who are in this community of like New York artists and great players, as you were saying. who will come in and they've been given the music, in advance, and they will just, do their absolute, damnedest to get it as perfect as they can, and come in and play a first show. And at that point, as a conductor, you just sort of make a determination. And let's face it, these are great players. So you're going to say, okay, this is a great player. I have these notes for them to help really kind of dial in their performance, so that it's as close to the performance of the person who holds the chair and is there the majority of the time. So you don't ever have a rehearsal with them, but you are giving them feedback, just like you give notes to actors and notes to your musicians, to help kind of fine tune them. And, in a show like Jersey Boys that is very specific in terms of the musical materials, there's not improv in the keyboard books or anything like that.
Yeah.
They take it home. They really get a chance to kind of hone it. They talk with the person who holds the chair. I have a question about this, or how does Ben conduct this, or whatnot. And so they come in and they're, it is a little bit kind of like getting pushed into the pool, the deep end of the pool a little bit, but they've prepared, and we just kind of welcome them in, and we want them to do, we want them to really succeed, so we give whatever notes we have to give. And then by the time they've gotten a few shows under their belt, they're really honorary band members.
I have two follow-ups just from that branch. So
Sure.
is it more of, what in those rehearsals, are you guys just kind of like sitting around waiting for the actors to be ready and then you just play? Or are your rehearsals more of just a technical day to make sure that the levels are correct and exactly what you need? Like, do you experiment, see what works within the theater? Maybe different spots sound better.
Yeah, I mean, that really opens up a topic of like the different kinds of rehearsals that we do have.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? So we do not have rehearsals for the band, except for when the company gets mounted. So when the company starts, there would be sort of band rehearsal in a typical, show. Then there are just understudies. Like, once the show is up and running, you are, let's say, 3 months into a run, and everybody has gone on perhaps for their roles, at least had to put in. We'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah, okay.
But they'll have just like run-of-the-mill understudy rehearsals, and it's this Frankie and this Bob, and all the way down. And then those will just kind of be in regular cycling. And for those rehearsals, we wouldn't have our sound department in. We would have a pianist. You would, probably have a music director checking in, and giving and noting the show. The dance captain is going to be there, noting the run. It's not a real run through, it's a rehearsal through, essentially. And then you give notes afterwards. And then there's kind of a special kind of rehearsal called a put-in, which is really a dress rehearsal for someone's first in dress, in microphone, in wigs, whatever, full out, the lighting department is there, the sound department is there, all the department heads are there to take notes, costume department, etc. And it's really about giving them the experience as best we can of what a performance would be like.
Full band?
They don't have full band for that. We have a drummer and a pianist, so it's, it gets you there.
Yeah.
And that is kind of the send-off, if you will, of having that person ready to go on. I mean, as long as they've been successful and no departments, which they always are. But we say, okay, this person is now ready to go on for Tommy. And so the next chance that a Tommy gets to go on, off they go. So those are a little bit of the different kinds of rehearsals. And then there are like vocal brush up rehearsals, which we could call sort of separate from that, where you might call the seasons into a brush up rehearsal. You might call the ensemble or perhaps the full company, just to do a vocal rehearsal that, runs through, any number of cues to kind of help, sort of tighten them up.
Either you or Ron will give a musician notes, and it's like, okay,
it's too late for the notes. It's like the show's over.
Right, so I guess sometimes before a show, will, like, if a musician, a sub, has a question, hey Ben, can we all get in the pit for a second, or not pit, like wherever. So I know you guys are kind of, and this was a question that we had. Do you sit on stage right? right? Off to the
I
side.
do sit stage right, sort of behind the half black that opens and closes.
Yeah.
I'm right, behind the sort of hidden part of that
Right.
half black.
So if someone's like, hey, I really want to run this section really, really quickly.
Yeah, or can we meet an hour early just to make sure?
Would that be something that you could, or is that like, does that have to go on the official books? Do people have to get paid extra for that? So
I think it depends on the conductor, and it just sort of depends on, you naturally want to help somebody, right? You want the subs to be successful, you want the show to sound perfect. So in my own practice, like if a sub has a question, if they can email it to me or find me before a show, I'm more than happy to kind of walk through a section with them. I've had a sub once ask me for if I could make like a little conducting video of a particular moment, just to kind of literally just me sitting here with an iPhone and just going wave, 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 wave. What does that look like? I'm happy to do that. In terms of like calling a rehearsal or showing up an hour before, that starts to get into like, well, is it an official rehearsal?
right.
But you do everything you can to help a player. You just do.
Even when I was at Rutgers in Newark, that was the first time I ever got to perform a show with a live band. I've been fortunate enough to do shows, great tracks, but like those were the first musicals I ever did with a live band, and the band would meet on the Sunday before tech. No, yeah, Sunday before tech. They would meet for 4 hours. We wouldn't even get to play with them. We didn't have a sits probe. We didn't even have a Wandle probe,
Yeah.
What are those?
So a sits probe is a rehearsal where the band and the actors meet for the very first time, and you just sing through the music, and the band plays through the musical cues.
That's my favorite part of a
Yeah.
rehearsal process.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
now I know the
like, you
name.
set up microphones, you just sit and you just enjoy the music. You get to hear the band for the first time. Never had a sits probe, would love to have one day. And a Wandle probe is essentially, no, I mean, a Wandle probe is just running through the show with the band for the first time, essentially, right? Like
Yes.
on stage, going through everything.
Okay.
Yeah. Walking through your blocking, sort of, being there.
We were just thrown into it. Like, okay, band's here. They had 4 hours of rehearsal, and that's it.
Wow.
So that's all they got. They got 4 hours on a Sunday morning, and the whole world exploded. No, it's 4 hours on a Sunday morning, and then that's all they had. And like, if they had a question, they'd ask our, you might know my music director from Rutgers. His name is Robert Felstein.
I have heard people mention that name before. I don't know him personally, but yeah, I mean, it's a great program. And
yeah, so he played in the Fantastics for 10 years, and
yes,
and so like we were doing the Toxic Avenger, and he had a sub come in for one of the performances because he was going to play with Julia Murney. I'm like, and like it's funny. So the music director I was talking about, Robert, when I was doing In the Heights, I was playing the Piragua guy, and coming out of When You're Home, right before Piragua, his keys one is playing a Rhodes organ. And then he has to switch it into the beginning of Piragua to get the brash piano sound.
And he never hit it, right?
and the first 3 nights he didn't hit it. He didn't hit the patch. And
and what was it? Was it some chaotic like church bells or something, or what was it?
So it was, thankfully it was just a Rhodes organ.
Okay.
So, I was ready to roll on. I knew what was happening, but I was ready to just roll on with it. But he stopped. So I was rolling on my cart. I had to roll my cart back off. He switched the patch. And then
oh my gosh.
And then I was like, oh, and so it was fine. And then so he apologized to me at intermission. The second night happened again. Apologized to me in intermission. I was like, Robert, you're fine. It's totally fine.
Oh my gosh.
And then the third night it happened again. and he like almost got on his knees, apologized. I was like, Robert, and then stop, like it's totally, you're a legend, okay, it's okay. And then he look what I wrote in my book: change the fucking patch, asshole. Big red letters in his book. I was like, oh my God. I was like,
Oh,
Robert, you know you have to send that back to MTI, right? And then but he had it, he made his own photocopies and put it in bind, like
yeah.
so,
Everyone has their that's an incredible story. I cannot imagine being you pushing a cart out and then having the conductor stop, like your big entrance, and then like hilariously you sort of wheel back.
Yeah, well, one question, let's talk about how your education, and how you became like who you are. But with what you're talking about with New York, like you come here to be with the best of the best, which of course is true. But the more the longer we've been here, I've been here like 3.5 years. It really is like just a normal place where there's a lot of disorganization and a lot of things that just get thrown together. Like I would think, like especially like for you and for the musicians, like to have more rules in place just in case, and to protect you and to give you that respect, to have the time that you need, and to make any kind of meeting an official rehearsal and have that be part of the process.
It absolutely sounds crazy that like a musician who comes in to sub a show, even like conduct a show, right? Yeah. Imagine that. They can come in and watch. They, like our conductors would come in and sit next to me, and they do that. They can be at home preparing. But like I've subbed on a couple of other productions as well as a conductor, and you do get just sort of at a certain point, you do as much preparation as you can, and you just get sort of pushed into the pool, and if you've been around and people know who you are and know your past work, I think the cream rises to the top, and we get great people who come in. And I absolutely get that it seems surprising that this is what happens, but it every night, every Broadway show you go to, and that's sort of exciting in and of itself.
Of course. How much notice did you get before you subbed the show, so you can learn?
It can vary. It just depends on the production's needs. Mostly, I would say my experience is that you have maybe a month to learn a book, but there are cases when you might not even have that. Mm-hmm. One of my own, I was subbing on a show conducted by Andy Einhorn called Holiday Inn. Yeah, he's such a wonderful, wonderful guy. And he had me come in to sub one of the chairs. And then I was also going to sub a second chair. And I had both of those books, but the distance between the first experience of doing them was just about a week. And so it was a lot of just, preparing and wanting to do good by him and get called again. Right. And so that's a pretty motivating force. When you're freelancing, is you want that call.
The music was my way in to the show.
Totally.
The music was really my way in, and over the years that I had seen it, I really started to catch more and more and more of what Ron did in terms of how he. I remember I was blown away when I finally started listening. I think this was like 15, 16 times in that I had seen it. So I stopped listening to Mary and Frankie in the pizza scene, and I was listening to the mandolin.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I was like, they're fucking playing My Eyes Adored You.
Yep.
That's right. Yeah, in a waltz. That's right.
I got so Ron he says it's My Eyes Adored You meets Come Back to Sorrento.
Mm-hmm.
That's perfect. That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And
they get together. Yes. They're gonna break up too.
Exactly.
That's such a brilliant choice.
I'm getting chills thinking about that. I remember where I was sitting in like the third or fourth or fifth row on like right center. I was like, holy fuck. And then so like after that I really stopped paying. This sounds horrible, but I stopped paying attention to the actor, to the dialogue, but I really started paying attention. And then I realized Frankie's talking to Lorraine and he's saying things that maybe he shouldn't say. Silence is
It's
golden.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you just said about, you saw it 15 times in or however many times in, and you spent one of those times really kind of thinking intelligently about, what's happening in the music, whether it's the underscoring or whatnot. And there's so many of those things in Jersey Boys.
So many.
Ron's mind is genius at ushering things in the storytelling through underscoring choices, through vocal arranging choices. The show, I think a big reason why it's so special is that it rewards those kinds of listenings where if you did that with the acting and you sort of didn't pay attention to the music, you would find even more connections in the script and in the story.
Yep. That's why we're here. And you have your doctorate in music composition. So
I do. Yeah.
When you first were reading everything, were you like, oh, I wish I thought of this, or like, oh my God, this is genius, or maybe you had an idea that you saw, or like, oh my God, like this is exactly what I was thinking this would happen. Like, did you have any of those aha moments?
I think there are for sure. So a lot of my training and work was in both composition and in music theory. And I know, David, this is something an interest that we share. There are definitely moments that over the years, right, you ask yourself kind of what's going on, or you want to dive a little bit deeper into a song or into something about the way that Ron structured in an underscoring, just because I think someone said earlier tonight, it was like you respond to something like that's really cool. I want to just dig in and sort of find out more about that. Like, why do I feel like that's particularly well done, right? So there are a lot of moments in the show where, over the years, thinking in a just music theory way, or thinking about how the music is supporting the story, a lot of different observations do strike you. I would love to, if you guys would like to talk through a couple of them. I mean, that could be something that we could.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. Whatever
Okay.
really stick out to you, and especially now, whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah, sure.
You have your little piano there.
I have a piano here.
Your favorites.
Okay. So I'll talk to you about a pair of moments that are part of Ron's underscore design in two different moments that I think is really, really effective and cool. And then I'll talk about a gaudio, so like a little bit of one of the songs from the show in a way that brings in a little music theory, but we'll keep it focused on Jersey Boys so that people don't fall asleep talking about music theory.
Let's do it. Whatever you want.
There's a set of underscores in the second act. So we know the second act is fall, right? It is the time when the group is sort of falling apart. The tensions between Tommy and Frankie are reaching, the height sort of the fracture of their relationship. And that is set in motion by Tommy hitting on Lorraine at the bar, right? So as soon as that happens, as soon as Tommy makes that choice, there's a small underscore as Nick comments on what just happened, right? And the underscore at that moment is a version of Silhouettes.
Right.
Okay. But it's not the Silhouettes that we know exactly from the beginning of the show and that we've heard elsewhere, which has a particular harmonic structure, which is all sort of root position triads, right? So that is, just to kind of get it in our ears, Okay.
That's it.
We've heard it, right? So when this happens and the tensions are sort of increasing, Ron has set the underscore where that first triad is in second inversion. So the fifth of it is in the bass, which is inherently kind of an unstable place for a triad to live, right? No piece of music, no piece of pop music ends with a tonic chord that's in second inversion. It just doesn't happen. And he gets rid of the rest of the harmonic progression. So we get the melody in the right hand, but we get this kind of ominous low drone of that fifth in the bass. Right? Then that leads us into our next little scenelet where Frankie is absolutely, in a rage over this thing to happen. We're moving towards the sit down here, right? when that scene happens and Lorraine says, don't wreck everything, it's what he wants, don't give it to him, we're going to get the same music, and it is now going to still be in a second inversion triad. It's down a half step.
On a half.
Okay.
And then the bram bram, it's you're playing an inverted seventh on top, right?
Yeah, you are.
Yes, it's kind of it's like Wicked. Da-na, da-na, in For Good. Those
Yes.
playing inverted sevenths going down.
Wow.
Oh,
So
I love this so much.
It's very unusual for successive cues in a piece of music theater to modulate down a minor second. That's very, very weird. And I think what's happening, or my take on it, I haven't ever discussed this with Ron, but we're being led further down, right? We're falling, right? Quite literally and harmonically here. And at some other level, we're also going into Gyp's basement, right? So everything is sort of coming down. That second cue that starts in F major, where does it modulate to 4 bars later? Now we're going down another step, right? Another half step. Again, really, really unusual. And so we've had these 3 successive, bump downs as we're sort of, coming to the head of the drama of the group, right? Now let's put that aside, put a pin in that. 20 minutes later in the show, or so, what's happening? Bob is on his journey to make sure that Can't Take becomes a single for Frankie. He delivers the horn section. It's the sort of promise of their partnership, of their friendship, right? And so there's a bunch of little scenes where Finney and Davis, the record executives, are at the desk and whatnot. And we've just come out of Marianne. Marianne ends and we're in F minor, right? What happens as we change scenes to go to the next desk, right? Mm-hmm. Now we're up a half step. And then we go up, even Bob is then with crew at the bar, right? So we have, in those 2 parts of the second act, we kind of have this mirror. We have descending half steps getting us down into Gyp's basement and the sort of height of the tension. And then we have Bob's journey to deliver on the promise as kind of a mirror of half steps going back up. And that's just kind of like a little, mirrored pair that is built into Ron's underscoring that I think is so fantastic and so subtle in a way, but just really rewards the kind of listening that you were talking about doing in the show.
Bookending. He loves bookending.
Yes. Yeah. And then, it's, it's part of one of those things that you do the show for a while and you just, you notice not just the pair, but then why is this happening? How is this contributing to the storytelling?
I think it would have taken me maybe another 30 times to really because I knew.
Well, it's okay. This is interesting because when Frankie's doing like with Marianne, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, that's one of the most memorable parts in act.
Yes.
When does it get goosed up to F sharp?
F sharp happens when he goes from the first scene at the desk to the second scene at the desk.
Oh, right. So after 1 week, 1 week, 2 weeks, that you're already in F sharp.
Yes.
Just like you said.
So that already feels like, tonic home. And then the G comes when Bob says, it's a hit.
It's a hit.
And now we're into
G minor. Yeah. Fuck
Ben,
me.
This is blowing us away.
This is nuts.
More.
Okay. So we can talk a little bit about My Eyes Adored You.
Okay.
So My Eyes Adored You is interesting for a couple of reasons. One is that it's one of the most harmonically different songs that we hear in Act 1, except for Moody's Mood. Moody's Mood is kind of its own thing. It's really lush, jazz harmony. It's in a particular idiom. But we've been hearing a lot of what you call rhythm changes, or the changes that make up Earth Angel or Cry for Me, or silhouettes like we just did. My Eyes Adore You is completely different harmonically. So it kind of, to me, stands out for that. And it's such a poignant moment of the storytelling. It's one of those two songs where, you know, we're staring at Frankie, who's facing, you know, 3/4 upstage. We tell our actors who play Frankie, you know, you're not performing this song to an audience like you're performing the rest of the show. You are, you know, you're letting the audience in on a very private moment. So it's kind of already in its own kind of special, you know, place. But there's a lot of elements of the melodic writing, of a particular element in the introduction, and in the harmonic structure of, let's just even talk about the opening, you know, 16 bars or something of it, that I think really support the kind of storytelling that's going on. So one of the things is that the beginning, the introduction, is in the meter signature 5/4. That does not occur anywhere else in Jersey Boys. There's one other measure of 5/4 that lives outside of My Eyes Adored You. Do you know where it is? You seem like you might know where it is. It's really hard to catch because it doesn't, it's really unfair, but it's the measure right before the drums enter in trance. Frankie does that ooh, wah. And that measure is a measure of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Wow.
I told you it was completely unfair. It's particularly strange, not strange, but it's particularly unusual to have bars of 5/4. And it's not something that is on Frankie's original recording, right?
Okay.
What does that sound like for the people at home, right? So here would be what it sounds like in 4/4. It's very strange for me to even do that, having done the show. But what you get with the show is,
You just let it sit.
Right, and so on. That is particularly striking to me. And I think that, you know, I don't know, but I think we are being told that there is something different happening here. Like it's there, whether you call it contemplative or whether you call it, there's a little bit of tension because we're not getting that regular, you know, sort of harmonic change every 4 beats, it's every 5. That's just very strange. So I think it sort of calls to attention that there's something about this moment that's different. And, you know, having seen the show, we know that this is sort of a different moment. So the meter of that is kind of reinforcing what's happening with the storytelling. You know, the next thing that's part of that same introduction is that harmonically, tonally, it's a little bit unusual, right? We start with a C minor chord. Typically in tonal music, the first chord we hear is the tonic, right? But what we're getting here is we're just getting sort of that sequence of that melody. It's just being sequenced, you know, down and down with the bass. And so we start here. What is that F chord? Like, what's the function of that F chord?
Right.
It's like, it doesn't feel like a tonic to me. It doesn't feel like a subdominant or even a dominant to me. It feels like it's a moment of kind of rest and we're finishing that sequence of events, but there's just kind of I don't know where we are tonally at the end of that introduction. And that's an unusual thing. And I think sort of supports the storytelling of, you know, what the narrator of the song, whether it's Frankie on his record or whether it's Frankie, the character in the show, there's something deliberate, right? We don't have progressions like that, certainly not before this moment in the show. Maybe there's one after it that I can't, you know, remember. But we don't really know where we are when we land there.
Yeah.
And then Frankie starts singing. Now, this is about to get really music theater geeky. So you know, listener beware. What happens next is Frankie comes in to sing, and we get this chord, as we know. My eyes adored you.
C minor 7.
C minor 7. Though I never laid a hand on you, my eyes adored you. What just happened there? We went from the C, which started our introduction, and is now the start of our song, is actually almost like a 2. It is a 2. That goes to a 5, and we cadence on our tonic. We find our tonic 7 bars into the song. That is very, very unusual for a pop song. And I think really, like, you know, there's this kind of, why are we starting on a 2? We're a little bit sort of lost harmonically before we kind of get that first cadence in B flat in a weird place. The third measure of the verse, that's very, very unique. And we don't stay there for a particularly long time, right? What do we know about the character who's singing My Eyes Adored You? It's a song about longing, for maybe being in a different place than we are, or regretting something that couldn't happen or didn't happen. And the harmony all through the intro and all through finally getting to this tonic, it feels almost kind of out of place with where we started our verse. Like formally we start our verse, but we're not home, right? We have to get 3 bars into it.
Wow.
So there's a lot going on there. And it, even when we get a strong cadence, we continue the song. Here's a big cadence. Headed for City Lights. And now we get the tonic on the beginning of, you know, that new section of the song. Feels right. We feel home. But we get it for 2 bars. Now what happens? Well, now we just did a 2-5-1 that tonicized the subdominant. So like we couldn't even stay happy in B flat for too long before we started moving on, right? So there's a lot of things, and I don't want to like go into every chord and say that there's a purpose there, but there are some really unusual things that do not happen elsewhere harmonically in Jersey Boys that are happening in this song that I think really, really support the storytelling. And you could even bring in the melody, right? This is a very strange melody for a pop song. I mean, how would you describe that? It's sort of like insistent, it's stuck, it's, you know, trying to kind of like work something out. You know, there's a lot of elements of the music, you know, the meter of the opening, the chord progressions that are not nearly as straightforward as what we've heard so far in the show, the melodic writing, that are all kind of contributing to this moment of kind of internal struggle that this character is feeling at this moment.
Wow. Well, you described everything perfectly. I really just leave it how you said it.
I have a question about the modulation.
Yeah.
When they're singing under the street lamp. Are you guys playing in, okay, because I don't want to make myself look like a schmuck here. Do you guys modulate to B major, A flat minor for the modulation? Or because I know what we were just talking about, we've now the tonal center sounds like E flat when you were playing that 2-5-1, the F minor.
Just briefly. I mean, that's really, it sort of goes and then it stays, but it is kind of a you know, a motion that's right, you know, kind of hinting at something else, but it doesn't modulate to E flat. You're absolutely right though.
Goes to B major, A flat minor, right?
Right, we get the 2 with Bob, the duet.
Right.
And then we're in B. Yeah.
I have a technical question when it comes to, you know, now you guys are playing all the horns on the keys.
Right.
So when I listen to the cast recording, or I remember past performances, when I listen to the saxophone after the modulation, and I don't remember this before the pandemic, but when you guys came back, the saxophone is a little bit delayed. It sounds to me it's delayed. So was that something purposeful?
That is purposeful. That is a Ron thing. He wants, you know, I think not to keep hitting at this, but he wants a kind of, you know, the other thing that we tell performers of the show, not just the actor playing Frankie, we don't want a performance from you of this show, of this song. We tell that to our musicians. We tell them, do not groove, do not sit there and you know, as a bass player, as a drummer, this is not about grooving and making a record. This is about you know, the experience of this character in the show. And so just don't focus on grooving like it's some sort of, you know, music record. And so part of that is some of the material in my keyboard's part, there are like these little 16th note runs. They're also just a little bit delayed. If they were precise, da, 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 da,
Yeah.
it feels a little bit like we're trying to kind of make perfect music.
Yeah.
And so, you know, Ron will say just, you know, to the key three, just have a little bit of wooziness, you know, in those 16th note runs. And then he'll say to the keyboard player who plays that sax lick, you're absolutely dead on. It's really, it's really sitting back. It's really sitting back. It's kind of like a David Sanborn kind of a thing, where it's again, it's not playing, you know, in a perfect, you know, groove with the band, because again, we're not here to make a record of a perfect song. We're here to have this experience of watching Frankie.
And has that, so was that the, because in the cast recording, it's not delayed like that, or I guess it's not audible to me that there's a delay, but I don't remember ever hearing that delay before the pandemic. And then when you guys came back, I started hearing it, and I was very, very curious about
it might be that there's, you know, maybe the player, I mean, that you have incredible ears. It might be that the player has chosen to just be, you know, like, you know, 20 months went by, we get back in the room, and it's just a hair, and just even that small change makes you, the listener, feel like, whoa, the sax is really kind of sitting back there, you know, in a way that it didn't. Or maybe the night that you saw it and paid it, or like you said on the cast album, it was sort of a different thing. But for us, I know you guys are coming to the show later this week. I think it'll be just this sitting back. It just has this kind of, you know, again, we're kind of in a little bit of a fog, right, in this song.
Exactly. And it was very, very similar in another moment in the show. And this was a moment that we missed. He was like, "Oh, you forgot something." When we were talking to Ron in Bye Bye Baby, the tempo is goosed up once he grabs the mic. You're the one girl in town. I love all the
we always do the
all the timpani hits.
The timpanis,
I love the timpani. So I didn't I guess I never realized that you guys goosed up the tempo there to kind of like, oh, you know, he's like on a rocking ship, you know, he's going back.
That's I think Ron likes to say, like, we're just sort of throwing Frankie through plate glass windows, you know.
Exactly, that's what he said.
You know, everything is he's just being kind of, you know, the daughter, the wife, you know, everything is sort of not really working, and so there are, again, like, this is, you know, back to the genius of how Ron likes to tap into the storytelling with these kind of details and subtleties, where, like you said, we start Bye Bye Baby in one tempo, and then whatever, you know, number of bars in, 20 bars in, there's that change where Joe and Charlie take the lead for a second, and we goose the tempo by 4 beats a minute, and then we sing the rest of that song, or that portion of the song, at that faster tempo, and then as soon as he's into the packing, you know, scene with Lorraine, we go from 140 beats per minute to 124 beats per minute. Whoa. And so there's this big gear shift that happens because, again, it's a different scene, it's a different window to throw him through. You guys are changing
grooves there. You guys are playing Dawn. Da, da,
yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
So it's a completely different groove. It's not the.
That's right. And the drummer, whether, you know, every drummer has to get in their body, because what they are instructed to do is, they've been doing just what you did, that da, 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 for Bye Bye Baby. And then we get out of that, and on the end of the third beat of that final bar, the drummer has to go, I think this is your Guadalupe.
I can't believe you knew exactly what you were talking.
Yes. Oh, of course. As soon as I read it, you know. So the drummer has to, out of nowhere, go and then we're right into the. So again, it feels like this, you know, it's a major gear shift, and it's part of the design of these moments. And then when Bye Bye Baby comes back later, and Lorraine then goes up the stairs, it's even it's
lower key.
It goes to a lower key, and it's in
because
yet.
He's so tired, he can't sing that high anymore for a little bit. Oh my God. I remember the first time I noticed that, I was like, because I always kind of noticed it, but I was like, whoa, he's singing in the toilet. He's singing in, I mean, everything's relative. I didn't, wow, that sounded very bad. Like, he's by the D major. So he sings the D major. That's like a nothing key for Frankie's,
Right. It's a major third below where we've been with the song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm sorry, you had a question?
I have, well, a lot of things. Okay, well, okay, this is definitely a stretch, but
okay,
you were saying how like you're downshifting, I can't help but think this is after fall, it's after Nick leaves, Nick with his caddy, literally maybe as Frankie and Bob are dealing with this on the surface, Nick is driving away,
shifting
but
gears.
also maybe, like regretting what he's doing and trying to shift back, backstage.
Yeah.
So anyway, it could also, because the whole thing is Frankie trying to figure out why Nick left.
Yeah.
So maybe part of that push and pull is also what Nick is dealing with that we don't see.
Internally, for sure. I mean, Nick is a deeply conflicted, and troubled character, right? And so I think that it's that feels like something that if there were a set of like Nick underscores, or if you want to read that into the tempo shifts, I mean, I think there's some fertile ground there.
Right. Well, I would love to hear what his backup vocals would be backstage. I wonder if anything was written for him with his harmonies.
Does he sing? Does he sing backstage after he leaves?
Yeah, when he's done.
Nick Massey?
Yes.
Yeah. No, until
Ragdoll.
I mean, until he sings again in Ragdoll when we see him, and then he starts singing "Who Loves You" as he's coming out, on the bridge.
Okay, baby, so high.
That's it. It is. High. Our Nicks have to have an incredible vocal. They sing down to that low E. Who will show me the and then they have to sing that high A at the end of, or when they walk up into "Who Loves You."
If you think about who's played Nick, it's like Matt Bogart can fucking sing B flats and C's on top. He can do anything. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, it's incredible. There's also a great little, again, back to Ron's vocal design. That low E is in Silhouettes very, very briefly when Nick is introduced. That late last night held you tight. So we're like he's establishing that Nick is the bass, like from the first moment that we see him, right? And if you take a look at the vocal writing in that song, it's much more between Nick Massey as the bass. He's really on the roots of those chords, which is something we get away from when we get into the Seasons music, but it's a not quite the Seasons sound, right? We have a different sound. It's a more open voicing with the bass down and the two other guys sitting above the clef. So again, just kind of adding a variety to those initial early vocal moments and helping to establish Nick as the bass of the group.
The rock.
Yeah. Wow. Okay,
you were gonna say something, Gia.
Yeah. Well, going back to the for Can't Take with the horns. So you were working on the Pro Shot with Nick Jonas.
Yes, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So was any of Ron's arrangements, or were any of them changed for film? Like with the delay, it works for stage, but do they have minor adjustments to make it go flow a little differently?
I don't know the answer to that question, honestly, but I don't think so. I don't think that they changed
anything.
I don't think that they changed anything. I didn't really, other than at one of the actual tapings, I wasn't there for like the band rehearsing or anything like that. I don't believe that they changed anything. I think it was you get the original, first of all, the original Broadway musicians, that band. I'm pretty certain that it's, the ink from, Broadway when it opened. I think, I don't know for sure, but yeah.
We're like 99% sure of that too. I was just curious.
Well,
at least maybe in editing, I wonder if with any of the notes that if there's
I have no doubt that they will spend a long time fine tuning that to make it absolutely impeccable, and it could involve some additional you know, additional thing. I can't wait to see and to hear it, and to hear how they, you know, cut it all together. And I think it's going to be great.
Yeah. Wow.
Wait, and another question. With backup sessions, Tristan
Yes.
is amazing. And she goes like, so when she sings like I Still Care, it's like when she says like say goodbye,
Yes.
when did that change? And what's the story with that?
What's the story with that? So the story with that is Frankie Nolan is the setup that we get the Phil, the recording, you know, cruise engineer, you know, behind the glass with him. He sets up each of those little vignettes into the different backup sessions, right? And he gives us the name of the artist and the track and the take, right? And he says Frankie Nolan and the Romans, I Still Care, take, do you know what he says? Take 12. Bingo, right? So 12 takes is a lot of takes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. You know, the other sessions are not 12 takes. You know, you'll hear the intros to them. And so the idea, as I understand it, behind that middle moment is that Frankie Nolan is a credible singer, but she is, you know, I don't know how you might want to say she's a little bit, you know, got a little bit of an airhead, you know, quality to her or something.
Yes.
And so the reason that it's take 12 is that some little thing she makes a choice and it's just strong and wrong, or however you might want to, you know, sort of characterize it. She does something so that we know that take 12 is a blown take. And that's actually what animates Frankie to come in and just kind of like peacock for her with that wah, and then he kind of takes over and it pisses her off.
Right.
So the real challenge, it's such a tough line to walk for any actress that sings that, is that it has to be this character who can deserve to be in a recording studio, but there's like one thing that, you know, just isn't, as you said, and you picked it right up, right, isn't quite right. And we know like, oh my God, there's going to be a 13th take and the band is here and like, you know, what are we doing? So that's what that moment is.
Okay.
Yeah. We hadn't heard that before.
Ever
Yes.
In any production. So to hear that at the first performance after the pandemic, we were like,
yeah,
what was different?
The only thing I will say, blocking wise, I wish they were just looking at each other. Of course, I know, of course, you have to cheat out and face the audience, but it's hard to tell because it's so quick.
It's so quick. Yeah.
And for me, so as a teenager listening to the cast recording and hearing people like, "Wah!" I just thought that was just him. I didn't realize that he was trying to fuck up the take.
Right.
Yeah, or he's just trying to like show off, right? Because if she screwed it up, then why not have some fun?
That's
you know?
Right. I didn't realize that just from listening to the recording.
But yeah, but it's amazing that you keyed into that, and I think Tristan finds the exact right balance of making that moment happen, and it's not like it somehow hits that Goldilocks zone of just enough of a weird thing without, you know, suddenly being too weird, right? It's just it sort of hits the right notes, if you will, on that direction.
Yes. Yeah. I think it just depends on how all the actors react to each other, because with Tristan, like you can tell she's storming off and she's upset.
Yes. Yeah.
Other times it's just, you're just waiting for the next part.
I don't think I even noticed it until like the 10th time I saw it. I was like, oh, he's messing with her.
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. And that's again, like, you know, the same sort of theme is that there's just all of this, you know, these choices that were made and these, you know, the way that they structured moments like that, or some of the other things we've been talking about that just reward diving into the show like you guys have done so fantastically with this podcast, and just kind of scooping up and inhaling all of those, you know, subtleties and hidden little bits. You know?
I have a genuine question about the way the keyboard parts are written.
Sure.
So when did the horns stop becoming live? That
happened on the tour. I believe that the tour was the first company to implement that change. Yeah. And I think that it was after I left. You know, if I left in July of 2015, it might have happened like a full year after that, or something like that. Like maybe a full year, you know, July, like the end of that touring season of 2016.
Yeah. How did the books absorb the horns? How did the keyboard books absorb it?
Yeah, in a pretty thoroughgoing way. They made all of the books. We are, like you said, every keyboard part is now, filling out what that horn section would be. And so there's a lot more. I mean, some cues in the conductor book are the same. Like, for example, Big Girls Don't Cry, is 98% the same of what we used to do. There's a little clarinet bit towards the end.
Right.
But so that's how they get integrated. You just have these little moments that either just add something to what you were already doing or like substantially change it. Like Can't Take for the conductor book is substantially different than what it had been prior.
Can we talk
That's
about
great.
the end of summer? Because
Absolutely.
where we the bass clarinet. I was trying to figure it out. I love that. I
Yeah.
that's such a subtle thing too, but that
It reminded me of Willy Wonka, like the
it's
Yes.
the same. It's the same intervals,
right?
Just inverted.
Right. Very good. That's great. Yeah. It's like music theory mind there. I love it.
See, okay, here's the thing. I because we talk about this a lot. Like I notice changes or I notice similarities between different songs and different pieces, but I never had piano lessons. So I can hear it, but I don't know the terminology yet. But if I learn it, I know I can. Like, there are certain notes like, oh, that's a B flat. I know that. Or that's an F. I know that. But I have to just, but I only know 3 notes. Like I have to keep going. But that's really it. Like I've heard enough where I can reference things. But
well, that's great.
The start. We're in D major, and then what's the line that triggers the modulation to E?
Start our own label.
Yeah, exactly. And then the vocals come in, right?
Yes, correct.
The bass clarinet at the beginning, it's creating all this tension in something because something's about to get fucked up.
That low tessitura, the low range of the bass.
It's kind of similar to another version of Silhouettes, which if I could please ask you to play when Tommy is talking to Norm about the money, the low E droning on the bottom.
Oh, very good. That's brilliant because that's a second inversion triad.
Exactly.
Too.
That's a second inversion
Wow.
triad. A major, which we're going back. I mean, that's the key that you start.
Wow. That is a great catch. I hadn't even thought of that.
One of my favorite moments.
Right. So you have, there it is. There's the pair. The pair is that drone over Silhouettes.
Yeah.
I
for
love
that. Something underhanded is happening here.
Right. And
then something is underhanded is happening in the second act. That's fantastic. I love that. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. And I honestly, the reason why I love Silhouettes also is, the reason why I love Jersey Boys Silhouettes is when you go to that brang, brang, it's always a different brang, brang. It's like, and it's always very indicative of what's actually happening.
Right.
Wow. You have incredible ears. That's such a subtle thing to pick up to track across a show. That's fantastic. I've learned something just listening to that,
And we realize that Silhouettes is always playing when there's some gang shit going on.
Of course.
There's some gang shit going on?
Whenever there's some gang shit going on. Silhouettes is like Tommy's theme.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's why when Nikki's leaving and they're playing Silhouettes on the music box, the little children's music box.
Yes.
I thought we picked Silhouettes as our podcast
because
name, it is throughout the entire show.
Yeah.
Right.
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 Yeah.
It's all
it's kind of this glue that takes you back to the beginnings of the group, and then also is there as it's all happening.
Right.
Yeah.
So
It's
and
the real neighborhood.
it's so, but the fact that Ron chose silhouettes to play there, it's just like yeah, and he'll just throw something at you out of nowhere. It's like you thought that this was a pattern, but let me show you why it's not.
Well, you thought you were moving on, and it takes you right back.
right,
home.
and you thought
Wow. With
Fuck.
the storytelling. Look at that.
fuck, fuck.
That's the gravity. That's what Bob's talking about. Silhouettes is the gravity that puts it there.
Wow, I love that.
My favorite part in Act 1 is the leading up to the big three, of course. So it's like the dun 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 like dun dun dun. I hear it like on this side of the theater, and then I hear the dun 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 like on the second part, and I hear it more on the left.
Oh.
I do.
Is that a sound thing?
I don't know if it's just.
Are you talking about when Bob comes
Yes.
in with the shirt?
Yeah. Is there something there with the sound that makes, well, of course, because the way, no, it's blocked, like you're looking this way and they're looking this way.
Yeah.
And it's freaking genius.
I'm sad to say I don't know. I don't know that there's like I understand what you're saying. Are they panning it to different to different speakers? I'm not sure that that's going on. I don't, but I don't know. I'd have to like listen myself. I'm not sure I'll sadly ever get the chance to be in the house listening again. But when you guys come, listen for that. I don't know that I've heard it before.
I never noticed that.
I don't know if it's just me or if I want my ears to do that, because I remember when I would play it on my headphones, like I always like to play with that, like with the mono and the stereo. So sometimes the cast recording, I would just have one ear and then I wouldn't hear it as well. And then I would change it to this one, I would hear it.
Really?
Yeah. Well, of course that's not in the cast recording, but just generally I do that.
If you're into those kinds of things and noticing that, take a listen to Bob's piano and Cry for Me. Okay. And where do you think that sound is coming from? And then also take a listen, if you can, to the underscore in Act 2 when Frankie and Lorraine are, first, getting to know each other at the bar interview scene. Those are two moments where if you're into the idea of panning and like where is sound coming from, key up those two moments when you see it next and see if you can have any feeling of how it's hitting your ears.
Can you tell us what?
Sure. So, the Bob piano that he sits down at and plays, I don't know the specifics of it. I mean, that's through all the sound design that Steve Kennedy has done. We're making use of more dominantly the speakers that are, located over in that part of the, auditorium, so that feels like the sound is kind of coming from over there. And I don't know what the recipe is to make that happen, but it's sort of happening. And then in the bar scene with Frankie and Lorraine, it's also coming from kind of behind, where they are. It's probably in the stage fills a little bit, but there's a directional element to the sound design that's saying they're supposed to be sort of in a hotel lobby, right, or a hotel bar, and it's as though you're listening to that underscore. It's kind of being what's pumped into the hotel sound system. So it's not coming at you through the big speakers on the sides of or it might be, but to a lesser extent. It's a focused experience of the sound design.
Thank you, Ben.
Yes.
I was wondering. There has to be something to this.
Okay. Yeah. Is another moment like that at the diner with Bob and Frankie?
That's it would not surprise me. I don't know the answer to that, but it wouldn't surprise me because the music is, I think the idea is that the music, I'm ashamed to say I don't know this, is coming out of that little, well, it wouldn't be coming out of that jukebox. It would be coming out of the jukebox at the diner.
Or if
I'm not sure, but I bet there's something subtly different about that too, because, Steve Kennedy is a wonderful sound designer and would make thoughtful choices like that.
Can we talk about Some Lovers for a sec?
I'd love to talk about Some Lovers.
Please.
What do you guys?
Now I'm a lover.
What's that?
Like Bob Gaudio says, so now I'm a lover.
So now I'm a lover, right?
Guys, Grammy nominee Ben Hartman.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. It's really been a wonderful project to have the opportunity to work on. It's a show that was written by Burt Bacharach and by Stephen Sater. and they did it out of the old Globe. I think it was 2011, maybe 2012, sometime early in the decade. And they've done, that was sort of the first go of it. And they've, done some editing and reshaping, as you often do, with projects that are in development. And I first got involved with it not long after coming off the tour, maybe about 6 months or so after coming off the tour. They were doing the director, Lonnie Price, was doing a series at Lincoln Center called First Look. And it was like taking projects that had not been in New York City and giving people a first look, right? And so thanks to Andy Einhorn, I was able to get involved with that project and was the music director for that. That was like a one night only thing. And we had 4 awesome vocalists, and we had a band there. And basically it was kind of a sing through with Stephen talking through the story. It is a show about exploring a particular relationship between this couple, Ben and Molly. And it's told through 2 different time frames. We have a version of Ben and Molly that are sort of the young idealists just falling in love, 20-somethings. And then we have sort of their older selves, older being, maybe late 30s, early 40s. And we kind of toggle between those 2 time frames to learn about things that have happened to them. And the characters, the different versions of the characters can actually kind of comment and react and sort of challenge, what's happening in the different parts of their story. And it's just really a touching look at, a real, genuine adult relationship. And the great things, the great moments that happen, the not as great moments. And it takes place in New York City. It's kind of also got this undercurrent of kind of being a love letter to a particular New York City experience of an artist. Ben, the character, the main male character, is a singer-songwriter and plays piano in a restaurant. And that's where he meets Molly. And so there's just a kind of, arts, community story there as well. And you've got, I think it's 18 or so, brand new songs by Bert with lyrics and the story by Stephen. And it's, it's a real pleasure to be involved with. We then, once we finished that in New York, the concert, I got a call in a couple of years later, I think it was 2018, to be involved with it. They were putting together an album, and they were like, would you want to music direct and play piano on this album? And the idea with the album is, because it's such a small cast, they were going to get people who have played opposite each other on Broadway stage, or maybe in like a movie musical, to come in and each do sort of separate tracks. And they said, hey, and our first pair is Jonathan Groff and Leah Michelle.
Right.
And I was just like, oh my God, this is the easiest thing to say yes to, get to conduct and play Bert and Stephen's music and lyrics with just phenomenal singers. And they really just brought this cast that was so eclectic. Jennifer Holliday, Molly Gordon, Colton Ryan. Yeah, it was just Santino. And, we got started and we recorded a bit of it. We recorded some more of the rhythm section of the band first, so the singers had something to lay down to. And we recorded a handful of the vocals, and then the pandemic hit. And we took a little bit of time off, because I think nobody just knew what this was going to be. Are we off for a month? Are we off for a couple of months? When are some of our singers going to travel back to New York to record? And of course, just like with Broadway, it was just, well, maybe 2 months from now, 3 months from now. And so at a certain point, I think we all felt really passionate and strongly about the project and said, we're going to make this happen. And so we had these, just like we're doing right now on Zoom and everything. I mean, thank God for technology, but we would have vocal sessions on different continents sometimes with, me here at my place in New York, and Ramin Karimloo recorded a track for us, I think at his place in the UK. Like, he just, put a set up there, and Stephen was listening in like an Uber on the way back from the airport. And you know, we really had a great team of producers and our sound engineers and our musicians who were kind of up for anything, and made sure that this got seen through and completed. And I'm so proud of the work that we got to do on it, and to have it, you know, be recognized in the way that it was is just, you know, like an absolute pinch me kind of moment.
Well, huge congratulations. And if anybody
Thank
wants
you.
to listen to it, which you should, it's on Spotify, everywhere you can find music.
Anywhere fine music is streamed. It's out from Broadway Records. And look, fingers crossed that, you know, someday we'll be doing it, you know, in New York, and get a chance to talk about it even more. But it's a real special project, and I couldn't be more proud of it.
Yes. Would and I guess this might be a premature question, but because I know you a lot of times we do things differently for albums, and Ron talked about that a lot.
Yeah.
And Steve Orch talked about that a lot, putting together the album. You really wanted to represent the show in the best way possible. So I know you guys recorded Some Lovers with like these amazing, so many different Broadway stars. And I know some people they're like, when I think of shows like Some Lovers, I also think of I Love You, You're Perfect, Now Change, which is very similar. 4 people playing different characters about love, also about marriage. Little vignettes also. So would a production look like 4 people, or would a production look like an expanded cast?
That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that, but I suspect that it really would be probably a 5-person cast. You know, you have the 2 iterations of the couple, and then another character who plays a couple of various, you know, sort of, I don't know, you know, maybe if I wouldn't be involved in a storytelling meeting like that, or like where they're, you know, really saying, you know, how are we gonna maybe expand this if it's coming in, you know, if it really is coming in, that would be very exciting. But I think that might be up to like someone like Steven, and in dialogue with the producers of how they wanted to bring it in. You know, maybe they could say, well, there's this one character who plays multiple roles, and we do want to expand that. I'm not sure, but I think they either way, it's you know, captivating to have the smaller cast in some ways. It's just more intimate.
No, of course.
Well, I would want you to be in on those meetings, because I feel like you would have a lot of insight. Well,
maybe I don't want to, you know, maybe I would be. I guess I've never been in that position where, you know, there's a conversation about bringing a show to Broadway, and there's a discussion about, do we expand the cast, you know, because the vocal arrangements are already there. They involve just those 5 people. But would they, like you said, David, would they, you know, beef it up for something that's going to be a bigger kind of experience? You know, time will tell, but fingers crossed, you know.
Yeah.
I did a production of I Love You, You're Perfect, Now Change with like 12 people. Yeah. I mean,
that's great. Yeah.
It was a school, it was a college production. So, you know, you want to get as many people involved as possible. Yeah, like, you know, I've heard of so many productions of the last 5 years where it's like with, you know, they do it with like 12 people, you know. What? One couple like singing each song.
Wow.
That's strange.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I guess you kind of do lose in a way, you do lose
it's like a concert if you're doing that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you do lose the intimate connection of following one couple.
Right.
Yeah.
People.
Yeah, but the acting isn't really there. Like
it's just, it might be a little bit harder to follow.
Right. Yeah, well, I remember high school production, my senior year, I did The Good Doctor, the play, and it's like, I loved it, and it was all vignettes, but we had about 30 people.
Yeah. Well,
wow.
I wonder when that was on Broadway. I wonder if they did, because I did that. I did that also with a bunch of people.
With any Neil Simon play, you can always add more people.
Right. Right. I wonder if when it was on Broadway, if it was a core group of like 6 people and they just played everything.
Yeah, I would think it would be like Plaza Suite, you know, and it would be like just Matthew Broderick and Sarah Jessica Parker doing everything. So I don't know. But either way, Ben, this is so exciting.
Yeah.
Congratulations. So
awesome.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
To the Grammys. So what was it like being there?
It like what can you say? It's just like you made this thing with a lot of other people, and then you are part of this huge event. It was a whirlwind trip out there. But my favorite thing is I got to take my mom with me. And the person who just paid for all the piano lessons and encouraged me and sort of stood by me as all of the ups and downs of the industry happened. It was really, really thrilling to have her there. And I kind of had no idea what to expect. We don't know. And there's the afternoon ceremony, the premiere ceremony, which was what our 70 categories get given out during that afternoon. And I thought they did like an incredible job of keeping the ceremony sort of moving, and you're there with just so many people who care about music in all of our little like niche and different ways. And I thought that one of the things about being in that pre-ceremony where you're seeing performances by and hearing little snippets as the nominations come up of all of these different categories, and you sort of know they exist. They're like best roots album, best world music album, best this, and you're aware of those categories, but I'm not hip to what's necessarily being produced in all of them. And to get to hear little snippets and to hear some performances of groups that I had never ever heard of before really made you feel like, wow, like this, it really is the music community of all stripes, kind of coming together and having this big celebration. And that felt really fucking cool. And then of course, then you sort of break, and then you have the evening ceremony, which was also just a blast. I mean, just so many performances that were memorable. And my brothers actually flew out together, and we all sort of hung out after the ceremony in Vegas. Like it just felt like such a special time, and a true, like, maybe hopefully not once in a lifetime, but it sort of felt like one of those moments, and
like you did it.
You did it. It's sort of unbelievable.
I can imagine. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yay, congrats.
Thank you.
Well, definitely more to come, and you're gonna win.
That's all.
Oh, thank you. From your lips to God's ears.
Exactly.
My hand to God.
Yep, that's it. Well, I have a question. So
yeah.
So Jonathan Groff, Santino, and Rick Ellis are all somehow connected to Disney. And so have you watched the making of Frozen 2 docuseries on Disney Plus?
I have somehow not seen that. I haven't. I have seen, and I enjoyed the original Frozen. Yeah. My niece is a huge fan of Frozen 2 as well, and I have not yet seen it. So tell me, what do I get?
Well, I highly recommend watching both the movie and the docuseries.
Okay.
But the docuseries is all about the music, and it's
cool,
unbelievable. So so with Jonathan Groff, so Kristen and Bobby Lopez, they wanted to do an 80s rock ballad for Kristoff in the first one, and they couldn't make it happen, but they did in the second one. And it's so good. and they talk about how they did the overture in the beginning because they weren't sure how they were going to actually set up the movie yet, and how the whole thing kind of came together. And I feel like you would absolutely love it. And
fantastic. Is it on like Disney Plus, or what's it on?
It's on Disney Plus. Yeah.
Disney Plus. Okay.
So watch Frozen 2, and then you'll watch Into the Unknown, the making of Frozen 2. It's I don't know, just talking to you about everything.
Yeah.
I can see you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Being in leading that kind of process. I think that'd be so cool for you if you're ever interested.
I love that. Yeah. Let's shoot out a tweet and like tag them, and let's make it happen.
Do you know? I'm sorry.
No.
Guadalupe.
Let's do the. We didn't talk about Guadalupe. Oh my God. Okay. So speaking of subs, we were getting bacon, egg, and cheese sandwiches at my bodega.
Okay, yeah. So
Victoria Boulevard, where Tristan lives.
So just before we do that, because Ben mentioned our Guadalupe thing.
Right.
So just so
to bring it back,
people know what we're talking about. So Ben mentioned Guadalupe. This is the story behind Guadalupe.
Well, okay. So we were at my bodega, and we asked his name because our he was wonderful, who was helping us, And he said his name was Guadalupe. And then we were just singing Jersey Boys as we always do. And go ahead.
Yeah, and I was, because this happens, this drum fill happens a lot in the show with
Right.
and we had just heard it happens in Opus 17. It happens before Sherry.
Yes.
Kind of a little bit of a triple.
Oh, look at that. That's a great connection.
Yeah. It happens many times. And so I was like,
So he was just doing it.
Yeah, Guadalupe, that's the same amount of syllables as the drum fill. So I was doing the vamp in Opus. So because as you very well know, there's 2 places where you can exit the vamp in
That's
Opus.
right.
You can exit on 1 and enter on 2, or exit on 3, enter on 4. And I was like, Guadalupe, I can see there ain't no room. So like,
and I knew exactly what he was doing the second he said
Guadalupe.
In the bodega, in the grocery store?
No,
on a walk back.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, just as good, just as good.
Yep.
So-
well, all I heard him say was Guadalupe, and we both went. I can see. We were like, holy shit!
it was hysterical.
That is awesome.
Just kidding. We have to tell Guadalupe that he has.
Yeah, we
songs.
gotta tell Guadalupe,
Yes,
and
he has
anyone
like
named
5
Guadalupe. He has like 5 songs.
all over Jersey Boys,
All
everywhere, all over.
Ben
Legend.
Hartman, legend. Jersey Boys, legend.
Yeah.
Come on, no, honestly,
Oh.
like, it's, you see, that's the thing, like,
We've
when-
been saying your name since we started.
Everyone's
We're
been,
who's the musician?
like, everyone
And-
talks about Ben Hartman.
Oh
So
my
it's like,
gosh. Well, hopefully good things.
only
Yes, of
only good
course.
things, and it's
Yeah.
like when you've been with a show that long, everyone knows you, and you become a legend,
Yep.
and you just get written down
That's
in
it.
history as a Jersey Boys legend.
Well, I'm just delighted that part of that, I wouldn't call myself a legend, but a part of that, is getting to be here with you guys, and especially this week when, with closing the show at the end of the week, it really was the perfect way to spend an evening that's not at the theater with the show, and to kind of really put kind of a cap, at the end of this production. So I'm really glad you reached out to me, and I'm you should be really proud of what you're doing with this project. It's fantastic.
Thank you so much, Ben. You were
Ben.
fantastic.
You're fantastic.
I really want to cry. I guess I can't believe that it's ending, and but
Yeah.
I'm happy that you had a good night. So
Yeah.
yay,
We
we
did
all
too. Yeah.
we need it. Like Sunday's gonna be a mess.
Yeah. It's gonna be crazy.
It is a lot of emotions on Sunday.
Yeah, not good. We can't believe it. Like we're trying to get an op-ed on Broadway World, just talking about how he goes. Well, we sent a message to the editor-in-chief of Broadway World this morning, because the whole landscape of New York is going to change again. Like this already happened, 5 years ago, and because at least like for us, so we're 26, and really, since for as long as we can really remember, if you look at any piece of merchandise, like look about Times Square, you'll always see Jersey Boys represented somewhere.
Yeah,
and then,
yeah.
And then with the trash can advertisements, and then with the huge poster on 50, no, 48,
40, 47,
48th, I think, 48th and 9th.
yeah.
We're Ain't Too Proud.
Yeah. So that's
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
46.
46, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But that huge poster, like it's what there is no New York without Jersey Boys.
It's true. It's true. And it really is just that sense of, you'll feel that loss, you'll feel like that it's not just because it's my job and I go there every day, but I think the Broadway community and the theater community is, it's just sort of like, ooh, it's going to be a different time without having that show here. But hopefully, it gives it some time to go away for a little bit, and then maybe it'll be back, for a revival at some point, and people will get to discover it all over again.
I hope so. I'm sure it will.